Special report. Hello, everyone.
This just in.
Well, in like 48 hours later. Yeah. 2 years ago. Oh, he just woke up. We tried putting Cooper down for a nap for this. Jessica will go get him while I set up. So 2 years ago during the tour, we went to 2 dates of that tour, and it was the first time we had seen Relient K since starting this podcast. So we did report episodes to talk about our experience at those 2 shows, the Boston and the Orlando show. And this is Monday, right now, Monday, January 8th, and on Saturday, January 6th, Relient K, Smoking Popes, Less Than Jake, MxPx, all just played at the Hollywood Palladium, and we were there. So we're doing another report to talk about the 3rd time we've seen Relient K since we've started this podcast. And now Cooper's here. Cooper can tell the story from his point of view as well.
Yeah.
So, busy week leading up to the Relient K show. How do you feel, Jess? How are you feeling right now?
A little bit sick. Got a little bit sick to my stomach just a little bit ago, but good other than that.
Yeah. So
we had the flu.
Yeah.
Over Christmas.
Right. So last we talked to you, we were on our way to Florida with Cooper to stay at Jessica's parents' house.
We took the microphone with to podcast, and then Cooper and I officially got the flu. Danny unofficially got the flu. Mm-hmm. And I lost my voice for like 2.5 weeks basically with it. So we were not able to podcast, unfortunately.
Right. And then all the plans we had of spending time going out and doing things for that first week kind of got thrown out. So by the time Jessica recovered, we spent the time doing all those things we planned to do in Florida. Really wacky. Well, once Jessica and Cooper had the swabs done and were officially confirmed flu positive, I was like, I've obviously got it. I feel like crap. So we got back from Florida on the Thursday before this last Saturday. So it was a whirlwind Christmas break. And then we get back into LAX with 5 bags, a dog and a baby, and we get them all in our sedan. We realized we need to get a bigger car ASAP. Yeah, at one point we borrowed my dad's Ford Explorer, and there was so much room, and I'm like, this is amazing. We cannot
rock that in LA though, Dan.
No, we're not saying we're getting a Ford Explorer, but we definitely need a bigger car. And it's been our plan to get a bigger car having a baby, but just hasn't been on the docket. We haven't found the time. I'm like, no, we need a bigger car. And we certainly needed a bigger car for the first part of what happened on the Saturday. So,
36 hours later, we were back at LAX.
Yes. So, basically all day on the Saturday was spent, preparing for the concert that night, because if you saw on our social media, it's true. Saturday morning, we woke up and we went to pick up John Schneck from the airport to take him to the Palladium for sound check.
Get him to the Palladium.
A couple weeks ago, or a week or 2 ago, I posted on our social media saying hey everybody, would love to meet any listeners who are going to the Hollywood Palladium show. And I realized you think if there's a reason that everyone's going to be around, that you set up a podcast and meetup location. I'm like, no, we're not going to do that because Hollywood is crazy. It's incredibly busy around.
It was just a busy day in general. We had to get, we were down in Hollywood, then we had to get back up.
But people are on
drop off Cooper with the babysitter. Thank you, Jay, listener / patron Jay, who watched him for the evening for us.
But we were putting together a podcast meetup. It was I was like, this isn't going to work because everyone's on a different schedule. Everyone's got different plans for their weekend and how they're flying into LA and stuff like that. So I'm like, just DM. So in my original post, I said, just DM us. Let us know where you are, when, if you want to meet up inside the venue, outside the venue, etc., etc. And John Schneck, a couple weeks ago, replies to that post and says, well, if you want, you could pick me up from the airport. And then we could do a podcast from the car. And I said, sure. And he said, oh, I was half joking. And I'm like, well, if you were half serious, then we'll definitely do it. So we did. So we woke up on Saturday morning to go pick him up around 11 o'clock. and Cooper was in the car, and I was like, I know, we fit 5 suitcases. We left with 2 suitcases. We came back with 5. Because of all the Christmas gifts. We had 5 suitcases, a dog, and a baby, and it all fit in the car. So I'm like, Schneck's one bag and guitar case will certainly fit in the car. Well, the guitar case almost didn't fit in the car because we had the whole car empty, and the guitar case was too long for the trunk. So it went behind John in the back seat alongside Cooper.
Yeah, he was we had set Cooper up in the middle. I was on one side, guitar case on the other. It worked out fine. It was perfect. And the pedal board was also in the trunk.
Right. And then LA being LA, it took us like 2 hours to get from LAX to downtown Hollywood.
Most of that time spent just trying to get out of LAX.
What's funny is the geography of where we live and all the places we went to, just think of it as like an incomplete triangle, like 2 sides of the triangle exist, and that's the highway system in relation to where we need to go. We need to go in this triangle of which only 2 sides have a highway or a freeway, right? From our house to LAX, super easy, like 22 minutes, 25 minutes. From getting to LAX to Hollywood, really difficult, crossing through streets, getting on the freeway for just a little bit. Took us a long time. Getting back from where we dropped off John back to our place, super easy. 17 minutes. I couldn't believe it. So anyway, we cross town. We drop off John Schneck at the loading dock of the Palladium, and Dave Douglas is right there. And he introduces us, and that's amazing. I said, hi, we said, hi, how you doing? I look over his shoulder, and I see Roger from Less Than Jake. So I immediately push Dave down. I go up to Roger, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the guy from Less Than Jake, you're my second favorite lead singer of Less Than Jake.
None of this happened.
No.
I mean, we did pick up John Schneck from the airport. And
yes.
Dave Douglas.
No,
just didn't
none of this
down.
happened. In fact, there was no show. We just decided to make something up to have an episode right now.
So it was really hard faking that footage, but worth it.
Yeah. But AI does amazing things nowadays. So we leave John at the Palladium, and we go home. And then at one point I made a post where I was like, I didn't want anyone to think like, we drop off John, but I didn't put any much context to it. It's like, we're not going backstage or in the building right now, so I didn't want people to think like we did. So I decided to post a little thing of
Why
like,
not, Dan, make them think we're cooler than we are.
So
what are you doing?
So I posted a thing of Cooper's smiling little face on his diaper changing table, and he's like, Cooper's excited. He got to see the loading dock of the Palladium. And then, but now we're home, and so people thought that meant we weren't going to the concert, and I'm like, totally
thought we weren't actually going.
Ruined the entire point of the post.
Yep. Way to go, Dan.
What happened next?
That's it. I'm taking over the social medias from now on.
So then now we'll get into what everyone's really concerned about. So we wait for the babysitter. Jessica mentioned it. Our friend Jay was the babysitter. We get back to Hollywood, to the Palladium. We park in the really expensive on-site parking for the theater. $40, very pricey. We could have found something cheaper, but it was very important to our plans because this was the first time we were apart from Cooper for an entire night.
Yeah.
We had never spent this much time apart from Cooper. So we had it in our back pocket that if Jessica can't stand it, she will take the car home and I will Uber home. And that is what ended up happening.
Yeah.
So
also to relieve our babysitter, because
yeah,
it's a long evening.
So we get home. No, we leave. So we get home. So we give up. No. So we park. We go in, and we'll get to what everyone really wants to hear, which is like the set list and the Relient K performance.
We had enough time to prepare for this, and here you are. You're Danny storying it.
So we go to get in line. In 2016, when we saw Relient K and Switchfoot for the Searching for America tour, the line went around the blocks, right? It's a big city block that the Palladium sits on. It's in its own building, but then there's like a skyscraper that it shares the block with. It went all the way around, like the size of 2 football fields or something. Super long. And what was it? It was Orlando, where we actually did the math at the House of Blues. It was actually like a quarter of a mile or almost half a mile line that we were in.
That was,
We wanted to avoid.
In Orlando was, wow.
And
that was intense.
So I think it was a similar situation in 2016 when we last saw Relient K at the Palladium. We were, I think, half a mile line that moves pretty quickly, but it's still a half a mile line. And didn't you were afraid we were going to miss Relient K in 2016 because of that?
Yeah, it was, because I'm pretty sure that show was on my birthday.
Right.
And I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to miss Relient K because I knew they were opening.
Right. Then we would have definitely had to stay for Switchfoot. So we get in line, and then Josh, aka Danger Gavin, patron member and social media follower. I've known him since I started MxPx memes. Like before we even had this podcast, I'd known him online. And he sees us in line, and he's way up closer in line, and he brings us up, so we got to cut.
Thank you very much.
We have a whole conversation with him, and then we get into the venue. We go immediately looking for Relient K's merch. If you saw it in the social media, all Relient K brought was 2 shirts.
2 shirts.
They brought the new square shape where it's like Relient K, that square, and then the Miller Genuine Draft parody shirt, which Jessica bought.
Yeah, that's the shirt I bought, and I have questions. I'm like, are we acknowledging our line of Miller Lite? Like, what is, or did they just forget about that and they just thought, oh, this will be a fun parody? Because Relient K has always done parody shirts. It's a thing that they do.
There was something recently where Hoops posted a Miller Lite, like he was having a meal and it was a Miller Lite, or maybe he just can't remember what it was. Something that Hoops, his own social media, posted something about Miller Lite, and I quoted that song, and he said "ha ha" to it. Okay. So he remembers that those are the lyrics to the song. But yeah, Miller Genuine Draft. You know what I should do?
Or Relient K Genuine Band.
And that's what it says on the shirt. I should put together a list of every food mentioned, every food and every food product mentioned in all of Relient K's discography. And that's like the Relient K diet. I know you got Jim Beam.
Oh, no. Combos and Skittles.
You got combos and Skittles. You got pizza is in the Charles in Charge song.
You got Miller Lite.
You got Miller Lite.
Butter lettuce salad.
Oh, there you go. Does he eat anything in Sadie Hawkins' dance? No. Oh, Girlfriend, obviously.
Oh my gosh.
That's something that...
I thought you were going to say that you need to go through like the archives of all of their merch and like list all of the...
That's very difficult. There should be an archive of all previous merch. There's something like that for MxPx. It's the MxPx archive. I don't know the website, but if you Google MxPx archive, it's run by their webmaster and fan club main guy, Chris B. He has an MxPx archive for like showing all of like the merch that exists in every release. Like there should be something like that for Relient K, but like scraping up the internet for all those previous shirts, like you're basically doing a scavenger hunt of social media posts.
And Trademark RK is gone, so
yeah. I did see someone with the pizza sticker shirt, with the little pizza sticker that there's been the campaigning to bring them back. Someone had the shirt. So we get into the...
I saw the 7-Eleven one like you have. That.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yours got really, really faded.
Right. And then I have the LaCroix shirt.
Yep.
What else have they parodied? We'll have to think about it.
The Toronto Blue Jays. I have that shirt.
Right.
Yeah.
And we did what's the team that you like?
Maple Leafs.
The Maple Leafs. I made a Maple Leafs parody shirt for Sadie Hawkins' pod. No one ever bought it. And then that store got shut down. Except us. And then that store got shut down because of the MxPx memes TeePublic, which they were all on the same IP address. So they shut down all my stores on the same IP address, which is ridiculous.
Way to go, Danny.
Anyway, you know what we should do? We need to make a call right now, and we'll get back to talk about the show. I'm making a call right now. Any Relient K merch that you own, that you have, like, let's start putting this together. Let's start making the digital museum of Relient K merch. I don't know
pictures.
What Relient K might have. Just email it to Sadie. I don't know what Relient K might have. It's what I was about to say. in their own internal archives. But if they don't have anything like this, let's start putting it together ourselves. Like, you got a shirt, you got pins, you got buttons, you got anything about Relient K you've ever bought, take a picture of it.
We have that patch
and send
of
it to
yours
us.
that just says RK with like an arrow.
Right, and stickers. I've never, like, a lot of stickers. I collect stickers, and I very rarely ever stick them to something. Unless I buy it retail. I never use band stickers. Very seldom would I ever use a band sticker that I bought from a merch table, because I'm like, I'll never be able to replace this. I knew that back then in the 90s and early 2000s.
There are apparently books that you can stick them into, and then you're able to unstick them later.
Okay.
But it does make me nervous.
Or I could just get one of those books like they have at the punk stores. You know, like the big, like
a binder.
Like a binder with them stuck in there, and it's like sticker number 204. And then you go up to the cashier and you say, I'll have sticker number 204. Okay, so back to the show. So we get inside and we go looking for Relient K merch. Like I said, they had the 2 shirts. They were shared with MxPx's merch line, which got long really fast. So I felt bad if you get in the really long MxPx merch line and then you got 2 options for Relient K. Off on the other side of the Palladium, inside like one of the VIP rooms on the first floor, instead of being a VIP room, they made it into the merch room for the Smoking Popes and Less Than Jake.
They just like, it's interesting that they split it up like that.
I guess because they didn't have enough counter space for because in the Palladium there is one specific merch booth place just for the merch booth, but it wasn't enough for 4 bands. MxPx, by the way, has like all this merchandise because they do everything in-house now. Yeah. They are a store. They had everything that they have on their website was available at the merch line at this show. Unlike Relient K, Relient K does have merch available online right now, but none of that stuff was available. And I guess that makes sense. They probably have a completely different warehouse. Maybe that stuff's printed on a different schedule than what they brought. And I would imagine
also just like all the guys flew in. So like...
Right. Well, they definitely traveled. Yeah.
So I would imagine that they probably just didn't want to travel with all that stuff for like a one-off show maybe.
They definitely traveled light. Schneck flew in. There was a house setup of orange amps. Someone actually commented, Matt Kempf actually commented just in the last day, like, is that Hoops playing with an orange? And I said, I think it's the house setup. I think basically MxPx brought all of their stuff, and Less Than Jake brought some stuff as well, because Less Than Jake had a huge banner. But I think it was basically MxPx's show. It was their booking, and they invited the guests. They invited Less Than Jake, Relient K, and Smoking Popes. So it was like basically MxPx's house setup, and everyone just kind of played off of that. So it seems to me like, Relient K definitely traveled light. They probably just brought their bare minimums. Mike wasn't there. There was none that banner that they used for the classic like 2010 banner with the airplane. It wasn't there. None of that stuff. And even the Smoking Popes who came from Chicago.
They didn't have a pendant up.
They didn't have the pendants or any of that stuff. There was no stage stuff for Relient K at all. Like, they were clearly just there as a favor to do this, which reminds me of like Five Iron Frenzy's last show. That happened for that as well. In 2003, I went to that Five Iron Frenzy show. Relient K wasn't on that tour for Five Iron Frenzy's original breakup, but they went to the final show and they just showed up, and they didn't have any of their stage stuff for that because they just got there and played that show.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a similar thing. MxPx isn't breaking up. And Relient K is not breaking up either. I think it's clear like they got invited to this thing and they're like, we can't say no to this. And their set was way shorter than the festivals they played last year, but let's get into that in a second. We see Smoking Popes.
Yeah, I had never listened to Smoking Popes before. I heard the name, but was not super familiar. And I was like, oh, wow, this is such a Gen X band.
Yeah, they have like a Gen
so
X,
Gen X,
like left of the dial alternative rock, that early sort of like not punk, not hardcore punk, not, what is it called? Not like California punk.
Like alternative meets adult contemporary of that time, like totally. So
but I can definitely see, and once Jessica said it that way, I was like, oh, okay, I'm seeing this now. I'm pretty sure every member of the bands that night were Gen Xers, but Smoking Popes have a Gen X sound, and then MxPx and Less Than Jake and Relient K have a millennial sound. Even though I think Less Than Jake Smoking Popes and MxPx all actually formed around the same time. I mean, definitely Smoking Popes' first album was like 94, and MxPx's first album, I think, was also 94. So it's just funny how the Smoking Popes definitely have a sound of like punk from a generation before, or like alternative rock punk, alternative rock with influences of punk. And I had seen them once before at the Roxy with, I've forgotten again, I figured it out. I either saw them with Teenage Bottle Rocket or with Mr. T Experience. It was one or the other. And I don't remember because both those shows were at the Roxy and Jessica didn't go with me. So I can't remember. And I didn't go to see the Smoking Popes. I went to see either Mr. T Experience or Teenage Bottle Rocket. So one of them opened. And the Smoking Popes are a band that, like, it's funny because they played with Mr. T Experience or Teenage Bottle Rocket. And I can believe both because even though Smoking Popes have that sort of more Gen X sound of alternative rock punk, every band that I like that is more skate punky has cited the Smoking Popes as a if not an influence, at least like that they are fans of them.
Yeah, a lot of I've noticed that like a lot of bands will sort of cite them even though they don't necessarily have the kind of sound that you would think they would. They are very influential.
They were on the Clueless soundtrack.
Yeah, and a little story Matt Thiessen told was that when he was 18, his girlfriend's favorite band was the Smoking Popes.
Right.
So.
And I think I heard multiple people at that moment be like, ooh, do you think he means Katy Perry? And I was like, no, I don't think he means that because I don't think that's who he was dating when he was 18.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
I'm trying to think about the time. I guess it depends on how long they dated because he's older than...
When was Matt Thiessen born?
He's older than you. I think it was like 80. He's
2002 minus 1980.
Really? You need a calculator for that, babe?
22. So I think from my understanding and when I met Catherine in real life at a Relient K show in 2002, I think they started dating around like 20, around when he was 20 or 21.
Yeah.
And I'm only basing that off of my own experience meeting her. And the fact that I did not meet her when Steven was still in the band in 2000. And that's when he would have been only 20.
Yeah.
So I don't think he was talking about Catherine at the time.
Yeah, and they definitely would have met, like, probably at a Christian festival that
Katy
they were
Perry
both playing or something.
I shouldn't be coy about it. I say the Catherine thing because I don't want to be that fan who's like, oh, that's the most interesting thing about Relient K. Like, no, it's not. Just like I don't want to think every Blink-182 song is about Mark and Tom's relationship, or every Foo Fighters song is about Kurt Cobain. I would say that no Foo Fighters songs are about Kurt Cobain.
Which one do you think is Jack and which one do you think is Sally out of Mark and Tom?
Tom is definitely, well, that's a good question. That's so funny because this might have to be the rest of the episode. I got to really think about that because...
no. Okay, well, let's move on. All right, Smoking Popes. So we knew ahead of time from picking up John Schneck what the
set times were and how long they were going to go.
Each one was playing.
And then Less Than Jake actually posted the set times on social media later that afternoon.
So he had said that both Relient K and Smoking Popes were playing for about a half an hour. And then Less Than Jake was 45 minutes and MxPx was an hour and a half. So I was paying attention while Smoking Popes were playing as to about how many songs they were getting in. And I was like, okay, it's only about 6 songs. So that means Relient K will probably also be about 6 songs. Mm-hmm. So then it was like, okay, well, what are they going to play?
Right. So let's get into that. So then Smoking Popes leave the stage. I go and get a drink. I got a watermelon spicy margarita, which was actually not a watermelon pepper margarita. It was not spicy at all. I'm texting with the new... At this point, I'm texting with the new Sadie Hawkins Pod Messenger group, which I called the MxPx Relient K LA Show Messenger group. I might actually just rebrand it as the Sadie Hawkins Pod Messenger group overall. Daniel's in that group. Daniel Moraine, he's not at the show, but he's in the group because he wants to get the info about the show as it's happened, and he said, sounds like a fun group. Well, Relient K is about to take the stage, and Daniel texts, and he says, are we going to get the set list? And in my head, at both Yeah shows we went to, I wrote down the set list as we went because I wanted to be able to, because we recorded those report episodes right away, and I wanted to be able to talk about it right away. Setlist FM is updated for this show by now, but just in case, I was writing them down. And then and since Daniel asked, I'm like, you know what? I'll just live tweet the set list. Well, I'm not tweeting it, but I'll just live message the set list right now. So Relient K comes on the stage to the NFL theme. I don't know which specific NFL theme it is, but it's the I'm tone deaf when I sing. Can you tell what I'm doing? There's enough rhythm in that famous NFL song, that NFL film song, that I hopefully got.
Yeah.
So they take the stage to that.
We're riding in a wonderland of snow.
We're riding in a wonderland of snow. It's Thursday football time again. Here's 2 hours of Taylor Swift's face.
So they came out to that and then immediately went into Be My Escape.
Be My Escape, right off the bat. Shocking. So we'll talk.
I guess they didn't have a lot of time for preamble. It's a tight set, so
yeah.
You gotta just play the hits.
So here's the set list, and it is all killer, no filler, quite literally. It's high of 75. Nope, sorry. Well, Jessica said Be My Escape. They open with Be My Escape. Then they go into high of 75. And then they go into Forget and Not Slow Down. I Don't Need a Soul, which later I found out that in 2023 at the festivals they played, they have a new intro to I Don't Need a Soul, which they did not play at this show, which we didn't even know about because we wouldn't actually watch. We didn't, in 2023, except for the new-ish joke song, which we'll get to in a second, we weren't thinking to watch all the footage from Furnace Fest, Ohio is for Lovers.
That's part of our job as Relient K podcasters. What are
we
doing,
do enough
Dan?
other stuff. I didn't...
Danny.
So it was I Don't Need a Soul. It was I Don't Need a Soul without the new intro that they've been doing in the last year. Then they do a cover of Move to Bremerton with Hoops on lead vocals. It was actually more of a full harmony situation. Yeah. Everybody was singing the whole time.
Yeah.
But Hoops was like the lead of this harmony. In Move to Bremerton.
Which, guys, not new music.
Not new music. So Move to Bremerton.
Just a fun cover for the show.
If you haven't heard it, which apparently a lot of Relient K fans, or at least a lot of Sadie Hawkins pod followers have not heard it, it's like a slowed down skate punk jam. And what Relient K did was they transformed it a little bit, and they made it kind of more, not quite twinkle emo and not quite shoegaze, but definitely a more laid back alternative rock style.
Should I go get my phone and play it? Because I have it recorded.
Yeah, I'll put it at the end of this
cool.
this thing, and because I want to do as little editing as possible.
Okay. So Thiessen also told a little story with this about how they had played this at least once before. I don't remember if he said they would play this sometimes, but they would definitely play this back in the early days.
Yeah, which I'm assuming means like first album or before that, or because he said it was like a youth group because he was like, do you remember when Thiessen says to Hoops on stage, do you remember when we played this at some sort of youth group situation in like a locker room and it smelled like shoes or if it smelled like socks or something?
He definitely
and
said
Hoops did not
like
seem to remember
men's
that.
Armpits.
Men's armpits.
Specifically.
And I imagine at the time that they played it more straightforward like MxPx. They played it much different that night. So then they go into Who I Am Hates Who I've Been. Still more killer, no filler. And a mini mosh pit.
Yeah, that's when the pit opens up.
But it was definitely a push pit. It was a gentle little pit. Just a little gentle pit.
Look, the pit opens up and the guy in front of us took a hit. I'm like, really? For Who I Am Hates Who I But this is it? This is the sports money song, really?
And then they go into the Broke My Foot in the Less Than Jake Circle Pit song that they've been playing all of last year. Then,
which appropriate here.
Yeah. Then they go into Sadie Hawkins' dance, and that's the set.
And I will say that I think that this might be, sadly, the only time we will get to hear In Love with the 80s live. Because they do little In Love with the 80s sort of breakdown.
They cut to the chorus of In Love with the 80s during the new Less Than Jake joke song.
And there was a kid in the audience with a song and said In Love with the 80s.
Yeah.
A couple little kids in the audience for this one.
So super.
I hope they got them out of there before Less Than Jake, though. OMG.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that in one more second. I still got more to say about the Relient K set. So a couple notable things. Chris and Tom from MxPx were on the side of the stage watching. The side of the stage area at the Palladium is not big, like where you can actually see who's standing in the wings. The theater wings of the Palladium, not like large. Like some shows you go to and there's like literally a crowd just as big as any other crowd on the wings of the stage. You don't have that kind of space at the Palladium. But I saw Tom and Chris from MxPx standing over there. Another notable thing is that Thiessen never touched a guitar the entire set. All he did was keyboard, or he picked up the microphone and went like mic and vocals only lead singer style, which was unusual. I don't think they did that at the festivals last year. I think he at least had a guitar. I know he did. Yeah. I know he had a guitar
in Boston and Orlando.
Well, no, he definitely switched back and forth. Sorry, but I'm talking about the festivals last year. I know at the Is for Lovers Fest, which is where they originally premiered the Less Than Jake song.
I am still not used to it being 2024. I'm like, last year, that was 2022.
I've been so defensive about the fact that they premiered the Less Than Jake song at the Is for Lovers Fest because that did not have a massive, like, bunch of people talking about it online like Furnace Fest and When We Were Young did. So people who went to When We Were Young and Furnace Fest are like, that's where they premiered the song. I'm like, no.
Oh, it's just like every YouTube thing when they drop new music, they're like, this was the first show they played it at. No, it wasn't.
No. So, and then there was something else I was going to note. So Tisa didn't touch a guitar. Oh, Sadie Hawkins dance. I did not realize this, but they did not play Sadie Hawkins dance at any of the 2023 festivals.
Oh, interesting.
So here they have an even shorter set than they had at When We Were Young or Furnace Fest or Is for Lovers or that secret show where they opened for Switchfoot in Nashville.
Right.
That's the shows they played last year. I might be missing one.
Sadie Hawkins dance is a huge crowd pleaser. And maybe since they didn't play it at any of those festivals, that's why not one but two pits opened up and someone was crowd surfing.
So yeah, but it was interesting that like when you look at the sets for the festivals last year, they definitely didn't they played some Air for Free songs last year. They didn't play Sadie Hawkins dance. They always played the Less Than Jake Broke My Foot song. But I don't know, it's like somehow this set was super interesting. And I talked to John Schneck a little bit about it later when I saw him like way later in the evening after MxPx outside the theater, which we'll get into more details on that later. But I told him like that was so interesting that you opened with Be My Escape. And I compared it to the fact that I always wanted to hear like MxPx. I wanted to see what it would be like if MxPx opened a show with Punk Rock Show.
Right.
But not really open one of their own shows. My idea of this would always be it would be a festival set situation, especially if they're lower on a festival set that you like open with Punk Rock Show and like blast the audience who may not believe in MxPx anymore or do like, oh, MxPx is still around. You open with Punk Rock Show and you get them going immediately. But I've talked to Tom Wisniewski in DMs before about that. And he was like, no, we did that once and we'll never do it again because... And then Mike Herrera just recently on his podcast actually brought it up as well. It's like they opened an actual show with Punk Rock Show once. And after that immediate burst of energy, everyone was like exhausted. Oh. It's like you need to build everyone up into the frenzy before you play Punk Rock Show. And that's kind of like the burden. That's the cross that MxPx has to wear is that they need to close every show with a Punk Rock Show forever. But so I kind of got that thing I've always wanted from MxPx with Relient K.
The show?
That's the song's not called At the Show.
Oh.
It's Emotion is my middle name. It's the middle name.
Oh.
So I mentioned this.
Really?
The song's,
I believe you.
The song's called Middle Name. I think Emotion, and I'll see you.
I'm just gonna take your word for it.
This is gonna drive me crazy. If I get it wrong, I'll never forgive myself. But I'm also not trusting myself. Yeah, it's Middle Name. So anyway, I mentioned this to John Schneck. I'm like, it's crazy how that set, like opening with "Be My Escape," like that's what you do for a encore. Obviously, there's not gonna be an encore for Relient K at this show that's very tightly
We're
scheduled.
shouting for an encore though.
But he's like, yeah, well, we kind of had to because we had this short amount of time. And it's like, yeah, get the initial burst of energy, but we need that. We need them to go. Which, in my mind, that's what I think MxPx should do if they opened punk rock show, if they had like a 20-minute set at a festival. So they had to like so Relient K had to like hit the ground running with this really killer, no filler set. And there was something else I want to say about that, but I can't remember now. Anyway, oh, yeah. So the thing was, this whole night was long, just like this episode is. But it was really, really tight. Because they had a house set up, right?
Yeah.
There were set times. Set times were right on the money, like a Japanese train. Like everything left the station exactly when it said it was time. And none
of that rock star stuff where we're coming on late.
Everyone was out as soon as they were supposed to be, so like there was no time for Relient K to do an extra song. So then Less Than Jake comes out, and the pit, guys and girls, if any of you listening were part of the push pit for Relient K or the 2 push pits for Relient K, did you feel shame when you saw what a real pit looks like? Ugh. Instantaneously, when Less Than Jake takes the stage, opened up like a sinkhole, But
like,
a huge.
I cannot be in the middle of this pit.
The whole huge portion of the dance floor. So,
and man, they were going at it.
Yeah,
that was not a nice little push pit. That was too intense.
No, big circle pit really going. Not a lot of like slamming back and forth, but I did hear from some people later that like, there are some people.
Your phone was knocked out of your hand.
Oh, yeah.
And you got a crack on your brand new phone.
It's not a crack.
Screen.
It's not a crack. It's a tiny scratch that you can't see after I put the glass protector on top of it. But that was really close.
He didn't put his glass protector on before going to the concert for some reason.
I didn't get around to it. It's been a very busy week. So we go to the back. So we make our way halfway back to watch like 1 or 2 more Less Than Jake songs. And then we go all the way to the back by the back bar to watch the rest of Less Than Jake. Jessica also disappears for a while to go to the bathroom and stuff. So if you've been listening to the show recently, I think at some point, I think at some point we mentioned like,
not literally, I just had to pee.
The 2 bands that we have this like shame with is Switchfoot and Less Than Jake, where every time we've been in a situation to see Less Than Jake, Jessica hasn't been able to stay. And it's usually for like a sick, like overwhelmed feeling about the day, not for Less Than Jake's fault. And then it's the same thing with Switchfoot. Every time we've been in a switch, but that's usually on me being like sick and overwhelmed and done with the day. And it's always Switchfoot and Less Than Jake playing later in whatever festival situation or concert situation we've been at. So this time Jessica made it all the way through a Less Than Jake show. So we got to get back to Switchfoot and see all of a Switchfoot show. But Less Than Jake was amazing. They played tons of hits. I think there was only like 1 song I didn't know. They had a longer set. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that happened during Less Than Jake. Then at the end of Less Than Jake, Jessica made it through the whole show, because that whole Less Than Jake set, because then she says, okay, I'm leaving before MxPx starts. I hand her the keys. I'm like, give Cooper a kiss. I check the GPS. It's going to take her like 17 minutes to get home. I'm like, this is set on a Saturday night, like no traffic on the road. So I'm like, this is amazing. Because from the Palladium to our apartment, apparently it's 17 minutes with no traffic, or it's 4 hours with traffic. So she gets home. She texts me a wonderful picture of Cooper and her snuggling on the couch. And, but when you got in the car, I don't think you were even out of the parking lot when MxPx took the stage. Like pretty much seconds after you were out of my sight, I made sure to walk you straight to the door, because you also weren't even sure what side the parking lot was on. I was like, don't go out that door. Jessica almost went out one door, and like, if you go out that door, you are going to be really confused and you aren't going to know how to get back to the parking lot. Go out that door. That door leads you directly to the parking lot. But as soon as I turned around from that door and got back in the theater room, MxPx took the stage. Nice. MxPx also amazing. By that point, I'm also tired. I'm now sad that Jessica's not there. Like 20 minutes later, you sent me the picture of you and Cooper, so I'm also sad there. But I got to see all these MxPx songs from the new album that I've been wanting to hear. Ready to Rage, Not Today. My favorite song from the new album that I can't remember the name of right now. They played that. Then they played Can't Complain, which is actually my favorite MxPx song overall. It's only from a year or two ago.
That's funny, because it's my least favorite Relient K song. Just kidding, it isn't.
What?
Can't Complain.
Oh, I said Can't Complain, didn't I? That's not the name of an MxPx song.
Oh, okay.
I just have too much Relient K in my brain from 5 years of doing this podcast. So,
I was like, oh, that's funny. That's a funny little winky dink.
This Is What You Told Me is my favorite song from the new MxPx album. I don't know why. This Is What You Told Me is my favorite song from the new album.
Oh, I was really confused by that sentence because I'm not familiar. So.
And Can't Keep Waiting is my favorite MxPx song. It was a single from just a couple years ago leading up to the new album. It wasn't on the new album. They did play that as well. I don't think they didn't play any songs from the 2018 album except for Let's Ride, which is nutty because since the self-titled album, they play a lot of that album live, but I don't think they played more than, maybe there was a second one that I'm not remembering right now. No. They played Friday Tonight and they played Let's Ride. So, I heard so much of the 2018 album live, and now it's disturbing not to have heard so little of it after all these years. Which is also the thing is, like, MxPx has played in Los Angeles so much since we moved here in 2014 that I've seen them like more than any other band in the last 10 years.
Yeah, me too.
And there's shows Jessica didn't even go to with me that MxPx played in California. So that was the night. Then I leave. I meet some more listeners outside of the theater. And I text with Schneck to say, hey, not sure if we're going to get a chance to meet up again before I go home. But have a safe trip if we don't. And then he texts to say he's at Denny's. And he's at Denny's with a bunch of friends. So me and the two listeners I just met, we go over to Denny's to see him. And they had space at their like long table with all these friends. Now, at this podcast history, at this table with John Schneck is Kara. Now, you might not remember who Kara... I know you remember because I've already told you. Listeners may not remember who Kara is. But if you remember our Beeman episode, the thing we figured out about Beeman, and this was not information... This is information that older school Relient K fans all knew, but it was not information that existed on Song Meanings or Genius or Reddit or the comments on the YouTube for the song Beeman. But the song Beeman is about their tour manager from the time, Scott Cannon. When they say beam me up, Scotty, it's a euphemism of Star Trek to talk about how their tour manager, Scott Cannon, was their Scotty, like Scotty from Star Trek, who got everything done. We almost would have missed this fact because, like I said, this information was kind of like dead information. Like, it only existed inside older school Relient K fans' heads and Relient K themselves. Except Kara was a music video had put an music video upload that she shot at Warped Tour back in like 2008, right? And she had actually had the members of Relient K, John and Hoops and Matt, and I guess it would have Matt Hoops and Matt. Matt and John and Ethan were all in this video. And it blew my mind at the time because I'm like, this is a fan music video for the song Beeman. and it has the actual members of Relient K. And the story was she would go to like every show, and she knew Scott Cannon, and she was like, I want to make a music video for the song that's about you, and can you get the guys to actually film parts for it? And they did, and this video got uploaded. And if this video didn't exist on YouTube, we wouldn't have figured out what that song is actually about, because we didn't know that, and the information was not on Reddit, YouTube comments, Genius, song meanings, any of that stuff. That person, Kara, was there at the table.
Amazing.
And also the person who, and I'm so sorry, I've forgotten her name now, but the person who uploaded the Grandma's Chairs videos.
Oh my
if
gosh.
anyone remembers those.
Right. Yep.
Some
radio station.
Some radio station promotional acoustic performance where it's like, why is this Arizona radio station just have Grandma's kitchen chairs in their performance room? That the person who uploaded those videos was also there. So
Amazing.
Actual podcast history was sitting there with John Schneck at Denny's. Fun times. And then I took a lift home. Very uncomfortable lift ride. I don't remember what kind of car it was, but I was like, whatever car this is, I didn't pay attention. Full electric car. And absolutely no shocks and suspension.
Oh no.
I felt everything under the road. I felt every bump. I felt everything under the road. Super
we'll make sure
uncomfortable.
not to get that car.
Yeah. And my head was slightly on the ceiling because I'm a tall guy. So that was our night. Was there anything else? That was the Relient K opening for MxPx. So I think my number one takeaway was that this was definitely Relient K sort of accepting a show that they could not turn down. Like they wanted to do this thing opening for MxPx, but they kind of turned up in an economical way. 2 shirts, didn't bring their own gear, didn't bring Dermike. They were just like, we got to go to this show, but let's go as economically as possible. And apparently there's no other bookings right now for any other Relient K in 2024. Oh, and I completely forgot to mention when we talked about picking up John Schneck, is that we recorded a podcast with him in the car, which we will release later.
There'll be a little mini bonus episode.
There'll be another bonus episode.
Apologies for, and I'll put this at the beginning of that episode as well, for the quality. When we decided that we were going to do this, I ordered the best rated lavs, Lav 2 iPhone mics off of Amazon, and I don't know why the reviews are so good. They did not sound great, but that's what you get for $30. So yeah. We actually recorded this episode with those mics. Well, part of it, not the full thing. And when I listened back and realized it sounded like we were underwater, I was like, ooh, should we redo this? And Danny was like, yeah, so.
Yeah, so we recorded that thing with John. Sorry, I was letting you talk while I was replying to someone. They just remind me of another good point about the show. But before I say that, yeah, we recorded this thing with John. So the one thing we'll spoil, and I hope this isn't what you said because I wasn't listening, but like there's no other shows kind of booked right now. And you'll hear it in the episode, but
we didn't turn the water cooler off. And I'm not monitoring. So I didn't pick up on it because Danny has the headphones on.
Yeah, we're actually in the opposite chairs from where we normally sit. It's very strange.
Yeah.
It's very strange. Well, yeah, we'll see. So anyway, what was I saying? I'm so tired right now.
No shows 2024.
So no other shows booked for 2024. So we'll see in the future. Relient K has a clean slate right now to set up their 2024, and we look forward to whatever they plan to do in any capacity, if that's playing shows or, new music. Hopefully something like that happens. Apparently also like John was telling us about how like they tried to make another tour work in the last year, but it's just like things are constantly moving.
Yeah.
Life is a moving target at all times. And I'm fully confident that Relient K is around and they're getting going, but they're all mature men now. They're not the teenagers and the 20-somethings that they were at the time. Like I don't think we're ever going to have that old school Relient K schedule of, well, first of all, we'll absolutely never get the like album a year or release a year, B-side album a year thing ever again. I mean, if they want to, but I doubt that'll happen. And like just the constant nonstop touring or any of that stuff. It happens, like, look with MxPx. MxPx has an amazing business model. They're constantly around if you're ready to look for them. They're always there, but you kind of got to know and then get tuned in with MxPx. Like, MxPx does a bunch of fly-tos. They're doing the closest thing to a tour ever this year. They're doing a bunch of shows all over the country with the Ataris. And that's the closest thing I think they've done to a tour in a decade, or maybe half a decade, like 6-7 years. Like, MxPx hasn't toured in forever, but MxPx hasn't gone away because they play half a dozen to a dozen fly-tos a year. They have their podcast. They have their YouTube channel. Like, MxPx doesn't allow themselves to leave your site as long as you're tuned into them. So that's the kind of business model that these bands have now, right? Because, like, the support for bands like this, these middle to smaller, like the larger of the smaller bands to the middle bands, like, the support system isn't there anymore because of the economy, because of the ticket companies taking so much out of merch and taking so much out of tickets. Like, you basically have to be the biggest bands, or you have to be the smallest bands and just playing in, like, little dives and bars and stuff. Like, what else can you do? So it's just, Relient K is figuring out what their next phase is, and I'm looking forward to as that happens, when that happens.
Absolutely.
What else?
I think we're good. This is not being concise, but when are we ever?
No, well, it's been a big week. It was our Relient K Saturday. Relient Saturday. Relient Saturday.
Sure. Relient Catterday.
Relient Catterday. Hi, Cooper. Hi, Cooper. Oh, Cooper was in the car with John and us when we picked him up from the airport, but he didn't really get to see Cooper because he was in the back seat.
But boy, will you hear him.
Oh, yeah.
In the
Cooper's
episode.
First full-length podcast. Anything else you wanted to update people on? We've been talking about. So, sorry that the regular episodes are constantly slow. It's like one episode a month now, but we got a baby. Whatever.
We'll try our best to get back into the swing of things.
Yeah. We'll see what we do next. We'll see what the next song is, that we pick. I
thought you said we were going to do Kids on the Street. Are you taking that back? Are you backtracking?
Well, I thought about doing Kids on the Street since we had a whole conversation with John Schneck.
Right. I guess you only mentioned that to me. So
yeah.
You're allowed to backtrack. I apologize.
Yeah. We'll see.
The annual Danny Bus Toss will be taken over this time by Jessica.
All right, everyone. Well, oh yeah, don't forget, please. I really want to start doing this, and I think I'll just start posting on the social media. Like, that would be something cool. I've even said, remind you what I'm talking about yet. Start sending us pictures of your classic Relient K merchandise, stickers, buttons, T-shirts. Anything like that, like, all the rare discs and stuff, they're on there on Discogs. Like, I'm really looking for the fast fashion and the expendable merchandise of Relient K's that is kind of forgotten, things that only existed for single tours, things like that, like zip up hoodies, anything unusual that maybe existed that have been lost to time. This stuff is literally getting lost to time, and this is my major anxiety for Relient K, is that they're a band who are super, super popular, have a super devoted fan base, but the, like, support of derivative projects, like, there need to be more people doing the stuff that we're doing. Like, Trademark, the website, went away, and I tried to contact that person and be like, are you bringing it back? And she never replied. Don't know what happened there, but there should be more derivative fan investment in the band in terms of their history. Like, when a band like Weezer or Radiohead have, like, every single known leaked, every show, like, there's no danger of any of their rare material ever becoming lost media. But we have seen through the course of doing this podcast that rare leaked media for Relient K is constantly in danger of literally becoming lost media. There was an episode of the original Relient K video podcast that disappeared from the internet for a long, long time until we went digging for it and contacting John Schneck and John Warren to be like, do you guys have copies of this? Because it's gone from the internet. The Jimmy Kimmel performance was gone from the internet for almost a decade. Like, you couldn't find that until someone finally uploaded it again. The Relient K fans need to rally. They need to rally the F together to, like, make these things never forgotten. So what I would like to start now is sadiehawkinspod@gmail.com. Send us your pictures of merchandise that you have from all the different decades and eras. And we will just start posting them on our social media and be like, another great find from this person and that person, this forgotten design, that forgotten design. Did you know they had beer cozies back in 2004 for your Miller Lite? Anyway, do that right now, and we will talk to you later. What, Jessica, your catchphrase, your closing catchphrase?
Oh, thank you all for listening. Stay safe and healthy out there, and we'll catch you next time.
Somewhere I see no